And I should also mention that there's interesting writing. Now, I'm not obviously a scholar of Orwell, and there's a lot of books been written, and I should probably recommend them somewhere. There's just great books written on 1984, on Orwell, on the historical context in which he was operating, and all that kind of stuff. But as far as I see, Orwell also with 1984 and himself politically, he was not espousing the complete opposite of totalitarianism. There is again with democratic socialism, that there is value to the connection between human beings, that you have to lean on each other, help each other, that society is fundamentally a cohesive collective than a completely sort of disparate set of sovereign individuals. It's both. And I think he was torn about that idea because in order to resist a totalitarian state, you have to fight for those basic individual freedoms. But at the same time, a society, a well-functioning society, allows for that freedom to manifest as collaboration. And so that's the difficult challenge there. Again, that's why he was a democratic socialist. And the criticism of the book was against totalitarianism, of a centralized state that controls speech, thought, the press, and all the basic human freedoms, controls truth. And I think a lot of people would ask the question, and I hear this tossed around, do we live in the world of 1984 today? And I think that's used as a shorthand to sort of criticize different policies and different governments. I generally don't like the use of that kind of language because it's basically crying wolf. If everything is 1984, if everybody is Hitler, then you're not going to, there's no way to kind of properly normalize the discussion of what's of the lesser of two evils kind of thing, which is ultimately what democracy is about. You have a collection of things you're picking. They all kind of suck, but you want to pick the one that sucks the least. And that's human society. That's human nature. It's messy. And so I don't think we live in 1984 state, but there's a lot of elements that this book reveals about human nature and about the operation of a totalitarian state that we should be on the watch for. So surveillance state, of doublethink, of controlling language, of being in a constant state of war as a way to control the population and the flow of resources. All those things have elements of almost like a useful tools for the establishment of complete control of a populace. And the moment you notice those elements, it's our job to resist those elements. So I think the point is we have to be vigilant to the slippery slope of the will to power in centralized institutions. Another thing I want to mention is that I think a lot of people rightfully compliment Orwell to have predict some of the elements of future society, especially with technology, technological capabilities that are, with, for example, telescreens used by the state to control the population. Maybe I can make a few comments on technology in general. People who criticize technology will often use 1984 as an example that, technology is a tool for a totalitarian state. It's a way that can achieve full control, and we should be extremely cautious of it. And I think there's a kernel of truth to that, but it's not obviously to me that on the whole technology is a tool for totalitarian control. That I think it is also a tool for freedom. The internet is an incredible tool for freedom. And so, of course, we have to fight for that freedom. But I believe in general, let's just take the internet broadly as an example. And there's a lot of sub-elements of that, and like a more sort of platonic sense of what the internet is, which is digital interconnectivity. We have to fight for the freedom, but in general, the greater reach and access that the internet has, the more powerful the resistance to totalitarianism. Technology is a double-edged sword. It provides the tools for oppression and the tools for the ongoing fight for freedom. And as long as the will to fight arises in the human heart, technology, I think, helps humanity win. And of course, there's been a lot of discussion about free speech and the freedom of thought. And there's a lot to be said there that's much more nuanced than the book 1984 provides. I think 1984 just shows the end horrible conclusion of complete totalitarian control over speech, over thought, over feeling, over everything. But in general, my view of it is it's a kind of inspiration to, in order to prevent ourselves from slipping into an authoritarian, into a totalitarian state, Orwellian type of dystopias, to avoid them, we have to value critical and independent thought. I think thought first, before speech, just thought. I think you have to learn to think deeply from first principles, independent of whatever tribe you find yourselves in, independent of government, independent of groups, independent of the people around you, the people you love, that love you. You have to learn at least sometimes to think independently. Now, this is the Nietzsche, if you gaze long into the abyss gazes into you. If you think too independently, you can break your mind. I mean, we are social creatures. We need that connection. But I think it's like with the Tom Waits, I like my Tom, a little drop of poison. I think of truly deeply independent thought as a little drop of poison that's necessary for your own mind. Most of your life you live, you kind of assume most things around you are true, and that's very useful. We stand on the shoulders of giants, but you, on a regular occasion, have to question your assumption, question your biases, question everything, question the things you've taken for granted, question what everybody's telling you, but not too much. It's a tricky balance. But the act of rebellion against the totalitarian state, against the slippery slope into that state, is that independent thought. And of course, speech is a manifestation of that thought. So to avoid echo chambers in both thought and speech, like I said, you have to question your assumptions, challenge your biases. I think that's the way out, or maybe that's a resistance mechanism to slipping into authoritarianism.